Welcome to Torqueconomics weekly automotive update leading up to the 25th of May 2025. Let's dive right into our releases and discontinuations monitor. We start with the sad news that the IS500 is likely to be discontinued after the current model year. This would also likely mark the end of the naturally aspirated V8 for Toyota, apart from the LC500. Toyota has decided to commemorate this by releasing a special edition of the IS500, which gets brake and body kit upgrades. As we move into the electrification age of Toyota, the new RAV4 was announced this week. Following the footsteps of the Camry, the new RAV4 will only be available as a conventional or plug-in hybrid. The car is quite clever. Expect Apple's new CarPlay Ultra, lithium-ion batteries, and a healthy bump to power output. What has stood out to me is the top-of-the-range Gazoo racing trim. The RAV4 has typically been a very boring vehicle to me. However, at the GR level, the car outputs 320 horsepower. It means that Toyota is expanding its GR lineup to almost every model now, and this is very exciting as a car enthusiast. Also from Toyota this week is the new BZ4X, now updated to be just called the BZ. As we spoke about last week, Toyota is moving away from calling their cars with the BZ prefix to mean EV, and now this will be the only vehicle to remain as such. I personally think they should just abandon the BZ name altogether, as sales have been quite poor to say the least. Moving on to Dodge, which has suffered by not listening to its core fanbase. The entry-level RT version of the 2-door EV Charger has been cancelled, and the 4-door version of its EV Charger Daytona has been delayed until 2026. Rumours circle the return of the V8 as demand remains. Despite this, the company still did release some more details of the delayed 4-door Charger. It will yield 670 horsepower and do 0 to 100 in just 3.3 seconds. It will also feature an extremely distasteful fake exhaust powered by multiple speakers. Staying with Stellantis, which owns Dodge, Fiat are currently making some interesting moves, including an off-road version of the Panda economy car. The Panda is currently available as a cheap hybrid for £18,000 with a small 21kW electric motor. Fiat had also released a 3-wheeled small truck called the Tariffs that offers 12 horsepower and 56 miles or just under 100 kilometers of range. The plan currently for the truck is for developing nations in Africa and Middle East at first, but also for Europe if safety standards would allow. Whilst nothing glamorous, I actually do like these small practical vehicles that will actually perform the work they are designed for. Moving on to the other end of practicality, the Hummer EV will receive a new edition called the Carbon Fiber Edition. As the name implies, carbon panels are applied and the pickup version will do 0 to 60 miles in 2.8 seconds, despite still weighing 4.1 tons. Tesla's Model Y performance has been spotted for testing at the Nürburgring this week. Outer appearances differ only slightly from the regular Model Y, apart from the bigger wheels and brakes as well as a spoiler. The powertrain is expected to be the same as the current Model 3 performance, which means 510 horsepower. The Model Y better move fast though, as Xiaomi just held a press conference to the YU7 this week. Xiaomi had made headlines by offering their performance sedan SU7 Ultra for $80,000 with over 1,500 horsepower. It is expected that the YU7 to retain this type of price competitiveness. The YU7 takes design cues from the Ferrari Purosangue, and the max version comes with 508 kilowatts or 680 horsepower. The Chinese startup XPeng released an update to its P7 sedan this week with 586 horsepower and scissor doors. XPeng is currently expanding overseas, so I'd expect to see this sedan on the roads of UK and the EU soon. The best-selling EV brand BYD put the Seagull for sale in Europe this week for €23,000, which is more than its price tag in China. Despite this is still one of the cheapest EVs on the European market. Production is currently based in China only, but this is expected to shift to Hungary once BYD's manufacturing plant is completed there. The Giamaro Katla was teased this week. However, it is unsure at this point whether the car would make it to production. Regardless, the quad-turbo V12 in the concept indicates 2,127 horsepower, all sent towards its rear wheels. This would make it the second most powerful production vehicle after the Koenigsegg Gemera if it were to be made. Now we move on to the headlines of the week. We start with a quick F1 update. Norris took home the Monaco Grand Prix in what was another very boring F1 race. Gasly managed to crash into Tsunoda whilst Alonso retired due to technical issues at 7th. What was perhaps the biggest highlight actually came before the race, when Leclerc crashed into a clueless Lance Stroll in free practice in what is no doubt another piece of meme material for years to come. Moving on, it is easy to think that EVs have already taken over the world from the new car releases, but news this week have suggested the struggles of traditional manufacturers to meet the demand of mainstream consumers in the West. Jaguar, for example, are reportedly considering another rebrand after the backlash the company had received for its radical change to its brand image. The Type 00 concept proves to be too big of a change, and like Dodge's walkback with the Charger we mentioned earlier, Jaguar will also likely tone down their progress towards complete electrification. Furthermore, MotorTrend did an interesting piece on Honda this week. Honda currently work with GM for the brand's electric vehicles by adopting GM's Ultium platform. The first in-house EV from Honda will not come until at least 2026, whilst affordable EVs by the brand will need to wait until 2028 and beyond. As proven by Ford, perhaps it is not the worst idea to wait. The American and European consumers are slow to accept EV technology. Ford, as a relatively early mover, has 1.5 idle battery plants located in Kentucky and Tennessee of USA. Now it is leasing capacity to Nissan at what I think is likely a reduced price point. The European battery maker Northvolt, which was once a challenger to China's CATL, is now facing complete bankruptcy as they cannot find a buyer after facing capital issues. All this underscores how much the West still leans on China. CATL's Hong Kong listing has been a hit with investors, and China's aggressive subsidies and mandates have driven some of the world's highest EV adoption rates. Chinese brands are reaping the reward that scale and maturity provides. This quarter, BYD outsold Tesla in Europe for the first time ever. Fast-moving Chinese players are starting to outpace their Western rivals. Although Tesla is a special case for the European and American markets due to the CEO's personality. CNBC reports that Cadillac is benefiting from being less politically involved. 10% of the brand's EV buyers had been Tesla owners prior. With this direct sales impact, the Tesla CEO Elon Musk indicated he will cut back on political spending and reduce political involvement. Musk has also committed himself to 5 more years in the leadership role at Tesla, which defies the call from a significant portion of investors asking him to step down. In other news, the Senate has voted to repeal California's strict emission regulations, which aims to outlaw diesels by 2030 and petrols by 2035. The state government indicated that they will sue the federal government over this decision. This is a developing story. An interesting study undertaken by CNBC shows that the average vehicle will cost between $5,000 and $10,000 more in the USA if they were to be 90% made in the nation. This would mean that, even with 25% tariff on cars, it might not make sense for a selection of manufacturers. Mercedes is expanding its Atlanta HQ by 500 jobs in its technology hub. Porsche investors are asking its CEO to drop his VW roles to instead focus on the brand full-time. Ford has accused law firms of overbilling, including for an absurd 57.5-hour day on an account. Moving into they just cannot make it right section. There were no notable recalls this week. Hence, that was all for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and please look forward to weekly videos on an ongoing basis. On that bombshell, goodbye.